Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Marian Tamalkov.
Happy Wednesday, dear audience, and welcome back on 116 episode of The Leaders Who Care. Marian here. As you know, we are on a mission to bring together some of the most caring leaders from every corner of the world who care to make a difference regardless of geography, regardless of a domain. We know that care arises above all differences and religion, and this is where we are here to bring stage of unique guests, someone who's very special, committed to making a difference in so many different countries. I had the privilege to welcome Dr. Jacqui Taylor, the founder and CEO of FlyingBinary and a founder of the empathy economy, something we're deeply connected with on many fronts. And she's on a mission to share the secrets of global success plan with entrepreneurs with unique membership. And Empathy Economies launched into 2022 as an online version as well. And she's committed to support more than 1 million entrepreneurs with resources to meet the challenges. And she's advising so many government and non-government and private organizations, and part of really tackling the challenges of this world. So Jacqui, thank you so much for joining us today. We can spend another long time introducing you, but really value and appreciate the work you do, and welcome.
I'm absolutely delighted to be here, Marian. I think that I'm amongst my own in terms of you and your audience, and delighted to be able to put what I'm doing in that same context, because mine's a mission of equity. I know we don't all start in the same place. And so that's the mission under which the Empathy Economy was founded in 2016.
We're very connected, absolutely, and we can also put numbers behind it, by the way, because I just want to put a brief quote just for the audience. If an average growth in today's world of a company is about between 5 to 7%, B Corp companies that really have a mission and care, certified companies, an average statistic shows it's 26% year on year. So it does matter how do you care, and how do you take care of everyone around you, of your social, economic, your people, your clients, and everyone. And this is what we'd love to talk more about. Tell us more about the mission and the work you're doing at the moment, because it sounds super exciting.
Well, I think for me, as a young aerospace engineer, when I was qualifying, it was something that was given to me to do, to work on a new jet engine concept that would solve the noise pollution in our cities. So from the very early days of my aerospace career, I was focused on the impact a business creates on society. I wasn't to know at that time that was going to be a defining part of my own career, but that's something that very much I was passionate about. And I did that work with the rest of the aerospace team, and won the college prize, graduated, all of that, and find myself out of a job because as a female engineer, I wasn't welcome on the production of that aircraft. Not something that my company had anything to do with, but the client wouldn't welcome that. And so I started in my technology career as to answer a single question: what would happen if you put aerospace engineering in the midst of technology? And the answer is chaos, because basically none of the principles and engineering background I'd learned were present in the technology industry then. And that out of that came our aerospace own industry view of software engineering. Now, that's a term that lots of people watching this will know today, but that for me always meant and its societal impact. So when I founded FlyingBinary, co-founded FlyingBinary in 2009, it was on this equity mission. I knew that tech was the enabler. I knew that tech was actually going to revolutionize our society, because I'd been building the research on that for the last 25 years about how it unlocks our talent. But it was a question of how do we build that technology to enable a whole new generation. And those entrepreneurs and engineers and businesses now that have been on that journey with us for 24 years are usually under 30. And our youngest one is 3. And he's a climate entrepreneur like I am, a blue entrepreneur like me, and cares about the oceans. And tomorrow is World Ocean Day, so I'll be going live on that. But it's something that I know technology can enable, but many people see technology for itself, not what it can do, not how it can revolutionize the way that our world works, and predominantly that we as people can be enabled by it. So that's really the mission.
Wow, that is well, first of all, much needed in today's world. I think technology on one end can be a blessing, but also can be a challenge often. And we'll talk about some of those points that were the risks and how we can handle. And I think it very much closely links to the values and the care of people who develop this technology and what's the purpose of it. But focusing on what's the impact of it is really what matters today. And I think it really it's a great moment to. So tell us more about some of the latest things, the exciting. You're in the midst of all this technology development, or perhaps what it can do, just for the audience, because I'm sure there's plenty of interesting projects or technology that maybe
there's lots of them. I can't talk to you about any of them in Ukraine for obvious reasons, but for anything I say today, assume that capability is in Ukraine to help them defend their country too. It really actually looks at the way in which we as humans are constructed biologically. And it's about adapting that technology to bring the best of our talents. So I think one of my best examples would be things that everybody will have heard about this week, when Apple announced their new what's called mixed reality or extended reality headset. That actually puts sensors on us as a human to be able to equalize the playing field and how we see the world. It can be an artificial reality bubble. We can be inside a bubble. We can be connected directly to somebody who's conversing as we are now. We can actually consume content. It literally extends what we can do as humans, and allows us to interact with the world in a different way. And I say that because I'm visually disabled, so I view the world in a different way than many. I'm also neurodiverse. My superpower is I'm dyslexic. And so my view of the world, that's why equity is so important, is very different to anybody that we would call neurotypical, that doesn't have those, say, challenges or opportunities to do that. And so something like the Vision Pro headset that Apple launched allows me to belong in the world in the same way of somebody that doesn't have those challenges. And so levels the playing field for all of us to bring our talent to change, to make the changes that we can bring. And everybody, whoever you are who's listening today, that applies to you all. So I work across the spectrum of everybody who has learning differences, not just like myself, but across it all. And those who have physical disabilities, where that just presents a challenge to us as technologies to basically make sure that what we give you as technology creates that equity environment for you, because good ideas come from everywhere. And certainly in the cyber security industry I work, we don't have most of the capability that I'm talking about, and so we bench many of our best talents. But anybody who's under 30, Generation Z today, they are comfortable with technology. It's part of their world. They navigate our world like that. Generation Alpha, 19 and under, they look at technology in a completely different way. And then Generation Beta, who are 9 and under, like the climate entrepreneur I spoke about, they look at it in a different way. And so it's about us as technologists adapting what we produce as technology to make the best fit for equity for each of those generations, and then considering neurodiversity and physical abilities, etc. Technology should be the one that shifts. And I'm reminded of one of my amazing Down syndrome ambassadors who helps me in this work. And she said, always remember, Professor, I want to be the boss of technology. And that's really at the core. I don't really name the children, but I'll use E's words because actually she's right. Technology, we should be the boss of that. It should serve us.
Absolutely, I completely align on this. And now linking this to empathy economy, perhaps you can tell us more how fellow leaders can benefit from empathy economy and how to utilize the best of technologies, in that relation, because I believe it starts from there. And what does empathy economy means to you in your vision and understanding?
So I've been developing the web science I've described, pioneering that web science for the last 25 years, understanding what to build based on what I've just described. And it's always been something for me where purpose, as I explained in the beginning, from the very beginning of my career, has played a part in it. But it came to 2016 where the UK had decided to leave Europe, something that people will know is called Brexit. And I knew that there was a wider opportunity to open up what we've been doing as part of our European world across the world. And I knew the world would contribute to that in a different way than we had. But the real problem I had was the business models that technology uses. Up until then, I'd been working, as most of you still will be today, in the sharing economy, where what you do is for profit. You may work in the not-for-profit world, but then often there's a limit to what you can do because actually you need money to scale. So I always teach something called profit for purpose. And so the business models around the technology industry in the empathy economy are profit for purpose. So we teach both things. And there's a very fundamental difference about how that would work for you, what that would mean to you. In the sharing economy, what we call our Web 2 world, most of the technology we're using today, including StreamYard, that's actually built on a for-profit competitive basis. You're always trying to outrun another competitor who builds competitive technology. However, in the empathy economy, where we build profit for purpose, and we all know and help each other to support that, it's a collaborative environment. So we're not competitive. There's more than enough to go round, and we collaborate to that future. So FlyingBinary, in founding the empathy economy, wasn't aiming to own anything. It was aiming to create that technology environment where we could all collaborate to a common purpose. And so that's the fundamental difference, because profit benefits shareholders and founders, and we see an unequal world as a result of that economy, whereas the empathy economy looks to actually be more collaborative and support, and particularly for me, support entrepreneurs to develop, or businesses develop their purpose, but also to develop a profit for purpose in order to scale, in order to grow, in order to really create that impact outside of where they would normally be. So the empathy economy today, from the initial company, our own, in 2016, is over 10 million companies in 173 countries today. And where we have all that same philosophy, and you've mentioned it already, Marianne, it's about shared values. It's about sharing those values. Our purposes may well be different, but they're all symbiotic of creating a better world we want to live in.
That is, just listening to you, and real joy comes out, on that. Just on the empathy economy, I love very much profit for purpose. This is very much aligned, and we are very much in the same, as you say, really amongst family that we feel. And of course, the purpose is the reason. Obviously, the leaders who care exist is not so much just to gets the insights, which is highly valuable, but it's more about the purpose of sharing those insights and showing that how you rise matter. So it's not just to be successful, but how you get there and what values that you have matters. Because there are many examples where they may be successful, but the path and the values that they've used is violated of how you become successful. And this is what we want to show to the future generations, like the one Gen Z, Generation Alpha and Beta, that really there is a way, because the same amount of effort it takes, whether you rise in a way that is for purpose or not. And if it's not this balloon success, it will you will deflate, and that will be the problem. And it's even tougher to start again. So actually, you might as well do it properly. that's really, because the same amount of efforts, probably if not more, will be consumed. Maybe the beginning may look different, but it's about perception. And I think really it's giving these great examples. And that's why I wanted to talk about of the kind of leaders that you see, the common traits that are in empathy economy, that are really good examples for you.
Well, I think that one of the things I want to focus on, which is what I tend to do with all the leaders as they come into the empathy economy, I teach them a single thing. I teach them to risk winning, because actually that purpose-led approach requires a new approach to risk. But I just want to step back one thing, because as I talk to leaders about what it is they're trying to achieve, what their vision is, what their mission might be, and developing their proposition, I do talk to them about leadership versus leaders. Now, this is something I do with the Fortune 100. Many of the leadership programs that I run outside of the empathy economy. Leadership for me is an appointment. Leaders are self-appointed. And so I really work with people who are leaders. I do work in leadership with the corporate world and what I do, particularly in technology, particularly around sustainability, because I'm a high-level climate leader. But that's a leadership role that somebody has appointed them to. Whereas leaders, the leaders I work with, I show them about the fact that they're self-nominated, and the thing they need to learn to do first is to risk winning. And mainly they need to understand why. Why would you do this? I get up in the morning and it's just genuine joy about what I do every day. But there are some days, like yesterday, when an attack on the dam infrastructure in Ukraine, that was not joy. But equally, when you work with, the leaders in Ukraine, they see that as their job to step up to that. And as leaders who care, we have that requirement too. We tend not to be extroverts, and I'm comfortable with that. I'm an introvert, or an ambivert as it's called, who's learned to be a bit more extrovert, and very much it's reminiscent of those words that Nelson Mandela said about letting our light shine to encourage others. But as leaders, if we learn to risk winning and we know why, what's our purpose, what we're looking to achieve out of it, how do we know what success looks like? That is actually something that when they take the very first workshop in the empathy economy, they literally write their own manifesto. And then that is their blueprint for their next step. And so I say to leaders who care, and all leadership cares, everybody's looking to get something done. But in this environment that we're talking about specifically, Marion, if we don't have that blueprint, our own manifesto for ourselves as leaders, then times will be rocky, because we will be challenged. I'm talking about overturning the business models of the way the entire world works, as you are, as all the leaders who care are. And so we can't expect that to be an easy journey. And, some days like yesterday are the darkest hour before the dawn, until the leaders, for Ukraine stepped up and we did what we did. Then that was a dark, dark time. But we all know why. We all know what mission we're on. We all know what the blueprint of what we're trying to achieve is. Doesn't mean to say we know how. I have a saying that says, put your goals in concrete, know that why, but put your plans in sand, because life challenges us as leaders and it's equipping us to be better to meet that challenge. But sometimes it feels a little bit like a challenge that's hard to overcome. But if you've got that blueprint and you've got that why, then actually you always can just dust yourself down. I usually give myself 10 minutes. If something like the dam being bombed yesterday in Ukraine comes along, I give myself 10 minutes. I usually do a meditation in that time to just absorb that and then dust myself down, and I'm off and I'm ready to go. And that's really the sort of the core of that leadership set of principles. There's many, many other things, but that's the core of it for me.
No, that is great to hear of how you deal with these situations. And it sounds very simple to think about, like, what is the purpose? And I believe, just from a spiritual point of view, as somebody that I believe we live in a spiritual world, some people often really understanding that's it's what we see happening, whether it's good or bad, is controlled and managed by not the bodies of people, but by the mindset and the spirit behind the person. So that's why when people don't understand spirituality, they often really easy prey for what's happening out there, because you got to understand that there's a reason why we're here and where we are, and fate plays a big role in this. And really listening to you about this mindset, about the principles, and how leaders react, and how we can inspire them to do more of that, is something really important. What would be one advice to leaders that are on a journey? I mean, not and you're right, everybody wanted to do something, of course, but sometimes they not necessarily with the right intentions, or the intentions were more self-centered, more self-focused. The reason I'm mentioning here is because just a simple example from scripture, for me, when I look at the greatest leaders of the world, I always question why people don't follow conquerors like Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great. Really, some of the greatest conquerors they've controlled. But people follow Jesus, for example. When you look at the character, he didn't came to conquer. He came to lift, heal, and serve. And when I look at this, that's what inspires me. And of course, looking at that, he didn't came to criticize anyone. So for me, I'm not criticizing anyone that is not there, or whatever it can be. As you said, like Nelson Mandela more recent times said, let our light shine and be an example. What would be your advice to those that perhaps on that journey, and maybe thinking and considering that I'm not satisfied with my level of leadership. I'm not satisfied with the results of my leadership. I want to be better or do more. And often that is from the mindset, from really that kind of purpose you said, and it sounds easy. What is my purpose? But sometimes it's two different things, right? Purpose and fulfillment, and gives you this idea. So from your expertise and advice to those that are on this journey, and even may not be clearly defined the purpose yet, or clearly have defined what gives them this fulfillment, or clearly define what is their gift, because everyone has unique gift, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think I think if that's where you are, you're in the majority. For those of us who've discovered our purpose and are on that journey, we're all on a journey, but we're on a more focused journey.
Yes.
What we've learned is to look inside ourselves. So most of what goes on in the world, as we're talking about, as Marion and I are talking about today, is external to us. And that's what's created the world we have today. When we talk about the empathy economy and building a leadership team for the empathy economy, we look at ourselves. We look at what we can improve in ourselves. And to be honest with you, life experiences are the biggest clues. So you have something in front of you that you find difficult. That's because it's there to make you grow. As difficult as it might seem, that is what it's there for. And I mean, I don't have a religious approach to this. I have a spiritual approach to this as well. I'm an empath. So I tend to look at the world in a very particular way. And so, for me, it's about how do we look at what surrounds us, but more to the point, for the experiences that are coming to us, but more to the point, who we associate with. That's vital, because for those that will look to externally create power, and one of the biggest ways of managing that in our world today in the sharing economy is to accumulate money, that's all external to you. That's not about what you develop for yourself, who you are, the leader that you're developing. And so mainly I've just literally opened my diary again to put some more slots in my diary now I'm back from Ukraine, to actually help individuals through a one-to-one mentoring relationship to look at this. Identifying purpose is its own purpose. It's a little bit like if you haven't got a job, your job is to get a job. So if you're not sure about your purpose, then that's actually what you need to do next. But I often find I've mentored many hundreds of 7, 8, 9-figure technology companies, 3 unicorns, one on the way to decacorn, $1 trillion valuation. And all of those founders and entrepreneurs and business leaders that I've mentored, I've always needed to ask them about, who are you surrounding yourself with? It's very tempting in a leadership role to have people who agree with you. I don't tend to surround myself with anybody that agrees with me, because I'm always looking to learn. And so if somebody challenges me, like a 5-year-old last week who rolled his eyes at me and said, "Professor, don't you understand?" And I went, "I don't. Tell me, James, what did I miss?" So I think that's actually, there's a humility with what we're talking about here, Marion. But Gen Beta taught me something very, very valuable there. If you're raising a child today who's under 9, that's Gen Beta. They are curious. And I spend my days attempting to become more curious, because then we're looking at creating a curious energy in the world. And that's where people gravitate. That's what people gravitate towards. That's where that helps us in situations that are unexpected and difficult. That's curious. What's that about? What can I learn from it? Who might I get to collaborate with to support me on that? And so I think a lot of this is about developing our own, I call it our own curiosity muscle, because when you approach the world with that sort of mindset, everything is fascinating. And I've literally just come off a call with a colleague of mine. He said to me, and we work in the artificial intelligence space, and he said to me, "This is just going to be amazing." He said, "You just opened up the whole world. How exciting is this?" And I said, "You just got to stay curious, because actually that curiosity is like an energy that for a mindset that's open, the possibilities are actually boundless. I've got quantum physicists would give me an equation for infinity, and that would be it. There is literally abundance, but it does require that mindset shift. And so I find who you're associating with, who you're surrounding yourself with, and really an independent mentor is one of the keys to that, which is why, as I say, I've just opened my diary to be able to one-to-one with that, because I can see I had an increasing demand from a number of leaders who are facing some challenges which any of us would consider to be difficult. And so I thought, well, actually, that's the responsibilities on me to be able to make that time available to help to support them to that next level of growth. So a long answer, but it's a complex one. And I suppose if I had one thing to say to anybody who thinks, well, that's me, is to say, find that one person who can mentor you, because actually that's usually an objective, a sort of critical friend type relationship that helps you get yourself out of your own way.
Thank you. Indeed, that's really good to hear. And I'm sure you've achieved so much in your career, and I can see a lot of traits that I look for in leadership. And one of them is humility. Actually, humility is exceptionally important, because the fastest ways to go down is through arrogance and ego. And when you see humility, it opens doors. It gives you that. Of course, the integrity is what needs to follow after you're humble, because people will hear because you have the humility. But if you don't deliver and your integrity is not on point, you can't build trust.
Yeah.
So this is like really a step that I'm sure you follow in that. But one important thing is that in these trades, in these areas, when we talk about leadership, is what do you do when people make mistakes? Like, is really that, and honestly, and those mistakes could be huge. That could be people's of lives may be lost. So it's mistakes. It's not just like something small, and it's I don't know, what is your experience with that? What is your advice to how people should react when it's a serious issue or big mistake was made? What do you see really in these situations?
Well, what I teach is to fail forward fast, because mistakes are just learning. And obviously you look to mitigate whatever's gone. I work in the counter-terrorism domain. The criminals never tell me what they're going to do tomorrow, so I'm never sure what I'm going to be needed to do today. And that's my world. It has been my world since 2015. But I think the other thing about that is, if I was to make a mistake like you're talking about, irrespective of the magnitude, the first words out of my mouth are, I just had a human moment. So be grateful for those mistakes, because actually it makes us human. It's our humanity. Acknowledgement of those mistakes, and again, back a little bit to who surrounds you. It's like, very much for me, I'd be like, oh, just had a human moment, need some support here, or need some help, or need to do a brainstorming. And so I have a mastermind group that's around me that I can lean on. I have 4 shamans that support my work in the world. I can't honestly say I know exactly what they do, but they're there for me, and they understand, that some of the sort of primeval ways in which this world works, the sort of foundations of it at a spiritual level. And so everything for me, you mentioned it before, Marianne, is about trust. I think the empathy economy is based on a new trust model. And so I trust that actually it's all going to be fine, irrespective of what I happen to do. Possibly I might need some support to take the next step if I have done something wrong. But I expect to do that. I work with robots. One of our offices is run by robots, and I don't ever want to be a robot, but I would like the robots to carry on doing the very boring stuff that I don't want to do, because they're quite capable of that. They do as they're told. There's no humanity. They don't go sick. They're just there for you. So why would you not get technology to do the easy stuff, so that you can humans do the hard things, the cognitive piece of it. And so for me, I just fail forward fast. That's my focus on it. That's my mindset on it. And I do teach that, because that sounds, it's another of these, well, that sounds simple, but it's not easy, Jacqui. Correct. It's not easy. That is something I train people on, because actually you need, as a leader, to be the one that stands in that moment, because quite frankly, all around you can be a sense of panic. In my world of counter-terror, that is often the case.
I really relate a lot to this, because it's like bringing certainty in uncertain times, and mercy. From spiritual terms, it's called mercy, the actual undeserved favor. When people do make mistakes, that they know they've made a mistake, sometimes may have made it again before, may not deserve that, but making that, being more merciful, and reacting in as you say, in that humble way and caring way, like it's really makes a big, huge difference. And I've seen the opposite, where people react and lash out immediately. That brings a lot of stigma and lack of innovations later on, because people were afraid to fail. They're afraid
Yes.
to make mistakes. And if you bring that fear into organization, but everything goes through you, which we're seeing actually even in courses of different those situations where if the leadership rules with fear, then the people are saying, I only need a general to make a decision. I don't want it to be on me because I'm afraid that I will be.
Well, but for me, you only have two cultures in any organization. You have one of fear or one of trust. And you know, my question often to leaders is, which is your organization? Yes. And that's usually a great debate. But the reality of it is, you know, within any organization, be it, you know, a privately owned company through to a government, there's a culture there. Is it fear or is it trust? And I ask that question so I know where to start based on where they think they are. Now, obviously, we do lots of things to decide whether that's true and how much of that needs to change and the rest of it. But there are only two cultures for me. And I think as a leader, if you're the one that says, oops, I had a human moment, then people go, Jacqui, I had a human moment. It's like, okay, let's hear it. What is it you did? What is it we need to do? Do you know about that already? Is it underway? You know, and that's a culture of trust where you say, well, you know, we're here as a team. And so therefore, if there's an issue in one part of the team, it's the team's problem. You know, so I don't believe you create leaders who lead their own agenda, but nobody's perfect because we're all human. So I think just being a leader that lives that trust culture is the way in which you get trust in your organization.
And empathy plays a big part. That's why I really relate to this. When you talk about robots and AI, it's I guess that can be trained for robots. I don't know. Can robots have empathy? You know, what's?
No, that's a big debate. We need another show for that one.
Also, the same way, you know, like I think really, but even some humans don't have it. So it's just interesting to kind of see how the technology will evolve and serve us. Because if there is no empathy, or in the future technology, or if technology takes let's say a prevailing status of us, then it's a challenge. Because imagine you basically the technology looks at you as humans and you say you do a lot of mistakes, you're full of flaws and issues, and they might decide that we're no longer useful. You know, it's like, so that's why I think you very much relate to how do we because now the Pandora box is open of technology and AI. As humans, I always refer to one paragraph from scripture where you had the 7 good years of abundance and preparation, and then you have 7 bad years where a lot of things may happen. So what if we're referring to those years where actually, even though there's challenges and wars out there, technically speaking, we are a very privileged situation right now in the Western world, at least, in terms of access to technology, information, really economy where we have food and so forth. What do we need to do to prepare and be for the future of technology?
Well, I mean, first of all, one of the questions people already asked me is, if I'm not an empath, will that matter? No, you don't need to be an empath in the empathy economy. It just happens that I am, and many of us are. But you don't need to be an empath as a leader. You need to have empathy. And you're quite right. Biologically, some people are not wired for empathy. So and there are certain sectors of the economy where that's very predominant as well. Financial services is one of those where empathy is not dominant. And, you know, I would say that you know, that's the reason we have the results that we do. But the reality of where we are from a technology point of view, I've got 24 years of research into this, not about the technology, because that's not what fascinates me. It's about what we do with it, how we use it, how it enables us. And that research talks about us at a global level, about what that means. And first of all, I've been working all that time to make sure we don't sleepwalk our way to today. So I've been preparing for today for 24 years. And I'm part of a group of people across the world that we call ourselves responsible technologists. There's absolutely no reason to panic. There is no existential threat. provided two things happen. Number one, we have some controls around what's going on, and that requires us all to be awake. And number two, it's actually all of our responsibilities. It's not governments, it's not just technologists, it's all of us. Some of the most irresponsible use of AI I've seen is from ordinary citizens who have no idea why they're using it, no idea what it does, and have no idea that there's a problem with what they've shared as an output. So if everybody's expecting technologists like myself to fix this, then we will be in trouble. But what we do need is technologists at the core of navigating what the plan is, because people who don't build this technology actually don't know. And it's not something that you can Google or ask ChatGPT or Bard for, because it doesn't know either, because it's the technology. So it's actually around the ways in which we design this technology, the way in which we build it, what we use, and whose hands it's in. And we all know, I mean, we're very soon in the next couple of weeks in the UK to have the Oppenheimer film come out. You know, Oppenheimer, who developed nuclear fusion and therefore the nuclear bomb. That was never envisaged to be a weapon, but AI and other deep tech that we build has become a weapon for some nations. And we're fighting the first ever weaponized war with technology based on the way Russia is fighting in Ukraine. So we are in that world today, but it's not a question of sitting back. It's a question of collaborating in. And this is the real reason that I've done 24 years of researching this is not just technology. This is a change to our society. Excuse me. And I talked to you about the Vision Pro that Apple announced on Monday. Can everybody think about what it was like when they first saw, I must just take that off the screen, when they first saw the iPhone? And actually, I was one of those people sat in WWDC to see Steve Jobs announce that. And I knew that that was the change for our technology world forever. What was announced on Monday was the same. And I think as those of us who've worked in building the Metaverse and the other deep tech that we're talking about, we're focused on AI at the moment, but there's much, much more of it than that. We have all taken that responsible approach. But in the same way that nuclear capability was developed to be a weapon, tech can be weaponized too, this type of tech, because it's in our hands. It's in our hands. The fact it's in our hands means we all carry some of the responsibility.
It's like you're asking for peace. But the question I have, how many people have peace in themselves? And the question, if you don't have peace in you, how could you demand peace, but if you don't have peace in you, it's like, well, first start with you. And it's not easy, because
it's not. And that's why this is so important, Marion, because for leaders, what we should look to first is ourselves, building our own capability. But there's no way of doing that in the world today without technology making part of that world. We are in a place now where, as you said earlier, the lid's off Pandora's box. It can never go back. We are now here. Many of us have been preparing for many years to get to here. So there's lots of knowledge, there's lots of capability, but it's actually in all of our hands. And we will manifest in the world what we are ourselves. And if we're manifesting things that are external to us, that are profit-based, then that's what we'll get. And if we're profit for purpose, then that's what we'll get. So it is about teaching a new style of leadership. And I think one of the things that people say to me on a regular basis is it makes them feel comfortable that actually that is being taught. It's not something that somebody's got to work it out. There are many of us in the world, that's what this podcast is about, that are already living this life. And if you're drawn to say, well, I'm not where I want to be, I've not unlocked my talents, I haven't discovered my purpose, the reason you're watching this is because this is the open door for you to walk through. And, you know, there's a serendipity that happens in this process where nothing is by accident, the people we meet. And it's up to us about our response to those people. Do we become part of that family, as you said earlier? Or do we say, you know, I'm living in fear, I don't trust, and therefore I'm not going to rise to this growth. And at the end of the day, that's a binary choice.
No, really relate a lot to this. I love to continue the conversation and have a bigger debate, because I believe I can challenge you a number of fronts, but not in here. I think that there are a lot of things that I'd love to share with you and have this productive debate, which I encourage. I actually encourage, because I have debates continuously with various different backgrounds, with various different religions, and I just want to see and find that consistency, because results matter, but also equally important how you get to those results and what do we refer as. And this is where the spiritual part comes in. And I believe that honestly, they, you know, like the quantum physics, isn't that a way to understand or link the spiritual with the technical or the physical world? You know, it's, if you think
well, I would say quantum theory, really. I use quantum theory. Yeah, because I think that's the mapping to actually, and then obviously you can add in on that, but there is a very direct alignment between quantum theory and what we've talked about today. Very direct.
I love to really, these are debates that are really, I believe, of exceptional value, and I love really having them. But definitely would love to do that with you.
Yeah, me too. I would love that, Marion, as well.
Really, that would be fantastic. But on the front of the two important questions I wanted to get out for the audience, because you do so much. How do you take care of yourself and others around you?
Yeah, and I think that again, it's setting the example for yourself and then learning from others around you. So I have a set of practices that I do every day. I take 30 minutes at the beginning and end of my day. Now, I work in 4 different continents, across 3 different time zones. So the beginning and end of my day might differ day to day, but 30 minutes at the beginning and end of my day. The first 30 minutes to prepare myself, I do some reading, and I meditate, and I make my affirmations and commitments for the day. And then at the other end of the day, I reflect on that. I write in my gratitude journal, which I've done for 24 years now, which teaches me about the things that matter to me. So that grounds me. That's a really great thing. I have my own mentor who's also an empath, as I say, 4 shamans that support my work. So I might well ground the end of my day or a space in my day to touch base with those people that are part of my mastermind, part of that trusted network that I have. I usually book only 45 minutes out of every hour. That allows me to put down some thoughts at the end of something and to center myself for the next thing. I have 2 camera-free days a week, and no excuses. It doesn't matter what you're the leader of. If you want one of those days, it's on an old-fashioned phone, because I'm not on camera. The other thing I do is I listen mainly to many different things during the day that also ground me. Often voices or opinions that I don't agree with, but I would like to know more about, which is why I agree. I'd like to have a longer conversation. But I always remember that opinion is the very lowest form of knowledge. I will thank anybody for their contribution, but I have data from across the world about the way all of our societies work. And so I'll ground what I do in evidence. And everybody's opinion is welcome, but it is the lowest form of knowledge. So that's my self-care, and that's the example I set. And then oftentimes I learn from people around me who do different things and think, oh, that's a really good idea. So the 45 minutes out of every hour, that's not my idea. I was talking to somebody about what they did, and they said, I do that. And I thought, that's a great idea. So I've got like a little notebook where I jot things in those slots in the day. And it's amazing that I find, actually, I've just got book 15 released, but book 16, I believe, is going to come from those notes in those 15 minutes. And I haven't actually told my editor yet, so I hope he's not watching. But I think that some of the thoughts and the sort of coalescing of what's going on, and my, really the things that come out of giving those 15 minutes gaps will be a book. And usually I have to sort of set my routine and book some days and start an outline and do that whole writing process. But I actually think I've written it, or I'm on my way to writing it. So that's why I would encourage everybody to do that. But always be learning, always be curious. And I think Steve Jobs did a speech for Stanford in 2015, which is my byword for this, which is stay hungry, stay foolish. And that's my be curious. But then look after you. Put your own oxygen mask on first. As a leader, you must do that. I'm an aerospace engineer, so that actually that relates to me. I can do that. I was like, I remember that. But everybody has their own. But those practices to sort of prime the pump of my day and to close my day are vitally important to me.
That is really, thank you for sharing those. Just to I see so many things that are really connect, because that this really makes such a profound difference. And to prosper in life, the 5 categories, people can call it more, but generally speaking, and the order matters. This is where it's like a shifter. When you do a code in a safe, you got to do it in the right way, otherwise will not unlock or will have side effects. And this is where it's really important that I've seen. And unless we do these practices that you just mentioned, which you cover a lot of them, and I listen to you carefully, you start with spirituality number 1, mental number 2, physical number 3, financial number 4, because that matters. If you don't have financial resources, you can't do much in the future. And relationships. So if you master those 5, you're prosperous in life. And it really, because if you only can buy things with money, you're poor. If you have relationships that really care about you, that's where but I call them the destiny helpers. To have those destiny helpers join you. What do you need to do? Who do I need to become? Because everything you're looking for is looking for you, but not this version of you often. So this is what you're helping leaders to get to, that version where they can find what they're looking for. And really, that's why it resonates so much. And
I just come back on that one thing, because one of the things it reminded me of yesterday was one of those dark days, and my team said, what did you do in that 10 minutes? Because I know I only give that 10 minutes. I said, I walked. Because actually, if you put your feet on the earth and you walk, I find that discharges some of that mindset that, is fear induced. I don't live in fear. I live in trust. But things like that are going to rock anybody's world. So if I'm ever in doubt, I walk. That's what I do.
Especially if you're barefoot, will be
barefoot on the grass. There's nothing like linking direct. For me, it's the sand by the ocean is my place of peace.
I love it. I very much relate to that. If I am ever in doubt, I do slightly different things. I pray. That's my way of getting. But of course, this is something to continue. Final question: what are your hopes? If there was no limits, if there was absolutely no obstacles or nothing that cannot be achieved, what would be your hopes for more brighter and more positive world, more caring world?
Right, well, I've done what I think is going to unlock that, and it's just making its way across the world now. So one of my clients is LinkedIn, the social platform, and they were looking to make their contribution towards climate change. And I suggested that we did that together, collaborative, as the way I do everything. And I put together the resources for every single person on their platform, 900 million people, probably 1 billion by the end of this year, to be able to make their own commitments to solve climate change. So those resources have gone out across the platform, being very well received. And now I'm putting those resources in the hands of leaders who care. So, so my hope is that we all do a little and we will solve climate change. If we save the only planet we have, we don't just save ourselves, we save our whole future. So all to do a little to solve climate change. That's my hope.
For all the leaders who care, where could they find those resources? Could we maybe direct us where we can find them, post them so they can distribute that? That's fantastic.
Oh, that would be brilliant. Yes, good point. Can I, after this, send you the links to all of that? And also I'll share my links if people got questions as a result of this. And I would love for you, those of you who are listening, the other leaders who care, who have yet to meet, to be able to give you access to this, because it literally gives you a seat at the UN table where I sit, and it makes you a climate champion. And I'd be delighted to welcome you into the empathy economy as a climate champion. So let's do that, Marion. That's a brilliant idea.
What a blessing. I thank God for you and your work and your impact and blessing to humanity, and wish you all the courage you need, the support to continue to be a blessing for us. And thank you for taking the time of these precious moments as you've donated really your time. Really appreciate it. And good luck in everything you do. And you've got an ally with leaders who care.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Marion. This has been a most illuminating interview. We've talked about things I've never talked about online before, because I suppose that's, as leaders who care, it's part of what we do. But it's been fantastic to share. And I wish everybody out there for their success. And I look forward to hearing about all your purpose and working with you to make the world we all want to live in.
With pleasure. If you have just a second, I wanted to share something with you, but thank you once again. And it's really